Growing up, my uncle gave us the same gift every Christmas. He'd come in and he'd just hand it to us. Well, sometimes it'd be wrapped, but it was a 1 ounce silver dollar, Walking Liberty silver dollar. Every year, same gift, my brothers and I. I think my sister got something appropriate for a sister. I don't know. But we got those. Eventually, though, he switched over to gift cards, and he said, well, now you know how much silver costs, because that was how much was on the gift card. That was his budget. And so we had lots of these, several years worth, 10, 15 years, something like that, and we just kept them at home. And when we went off to college, and my brothers and I went off to college, we kind of forgot about them. They stayed at home. We didn't take them with us. Until my little brother, he was getting ready to propose to his high school sweetheart, his girlfriend, now wife, and he thought, I know what I'll do. I need some cash. We'll sell those silver dollars. The problem is, he didn't bother to ask us other brothers whose was whose and where we kept them. And so he set himself as the divider of our inheritance and picked out whatever was necessary to buy this ring. He lucked out that fall that he bought the ring and proposed, silver jumped, it doubled for 3 months, and then it went back down. So, he lucked out on that. But, he divided the inheritance, and I think he maybe had divided it to his own advantage, because when I went back later to find what was left over, there was not an equal third share for me and my older brother, so we took the rest of them and divided them in half, and Matt got, a wife, so anyway. Our gospel lesson begins with just that sort of question. Jesus is asked to be an arbiter, a divider between siblings about an inheritance, which is an expected role for a teacher of the law. The Torah, the Jewish law, after all, has a lot to say about inheritance and money and land and property. But Jesus responds and says, no one has set me up to do this. And he takes it then as an occasion to combat a rather pernicious sin, that of greed. Because he sees, or at least it seems, that he sees in the heart of the one asking something of that greed. Because more than likely he was asking that Jesus divide the inheritance to his advantage. Why else would he be asking if he wasn't, keen with the regular split? And so Jesus tells us this parable that we might be aware and keep our guard up against greed. He tells this parable of the rich fool. And so the parable goes. A man has some land, and he's already rich, and he's got the land. The land produces well that year, and turns out his barns are too small. He doesn't have enough grain silos to keep all of his grain in. And so he ponders what to do and decides then to just tear down all of his barns and build new ones so that then he could have plenty of food and he can take it easy. He can eat, drink, and be merry. And just as he's decided to do this and started it, God then comes to him at night and demands his life, demands his soul from him. And leaves him with the question, who then will get what you have laid up for yourself? Calls him a fool and asks that question. So what, I would ask then, is the foolishness of this person? What did he do wrong? Wasn't the land that he had his land? Weren't the barns his barn? Wasn't the produce his produce? Wasn't he allowed to do with it what he wanted? What was foolish about what he did? Well, his foolishness was something like this, I think. He forgot that his life and his wealth were gifts from God, and as such, should be used in line with the way the giver wants them to be used. The abundance of his crops was a gift, It was a gift from God, but he chose to use it instead of the way God might have him use it to try and establish and maintain his life for many years. He was foolish in that he thought that his life consisted of food and wealth, that his life relied upon food and wealth to be maintained. Because our life actually relies on God. Because our very life, then, what is a gift? The other way in which he was a fool was that he forgot that his life is a gift from God. And as such, God can ask for it back. His foolishness was thinking that he could save his life through his wealth, his possessions, his crops, and live as he wanted to. This is what Jesus says is a type of greed, a kind of greed. Or as Paul tells us in our reading from Colossians, greed is idolatry. Meaning, greed in its many forms is about replacing the Creator with the created. It's about trying to fulfill our lives and keep them safe by the accumulation of physical wealth and prosperity. It's because in greed we are trying to establish and ground who we are through what we have, and not through God. Because as Jesus points out, our life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. You can have all that you ever wanted and still not have a very good life. And there are those, say, like St. Francis, who had nothing and lived the life of the blessed. And what is more, Paul points out that for us Christians, our life is hidden in heaven with Christ. That who we are, that where our life resides, is not here, but there in heaven. And so greed, what we try to avoid then, is placing ourselves where we are trying to establish and make our lives by this physical world. And what is more, not just our life, but our physical wealth is also a gift from God. The abundance of crops from the rich fool, he did not cause the crops to grow. He did not provide a good, plentiful harvest. And in fact, the land itself he owned actually belonged to God. God has a say in how it's used then. The Old Testament and the Torah is very, very, very clear. The land that Israel is taking to possess is actually God's. And so you treat it that way. You do things like leave it fallow every 7th year, so that the land also may have a rest from the harvest. And when you do harvest, you don't harvest all the way to the edge of the field. You leave the things on the edges and the gleanings there for those who are poor, those who don't have as much and what they need. Because it's not your land, actually, it's God's, and you need to steward it like God has told you to. And this might seem a little odd to us who have our houses and our property and all this stuff until you consider this. When we finish paying off our mortgages, we still have to pay taxes. So is the land really ours, or is it the government's? Or consider eminent domain, that lovely little bit in our government's legal code where if they want your land, they can take it. They'll compensate you, allegedly fairly, but if they have need, they can take it. So is what we have really ours anyway? And I think this half is a little bit of the harder point for us today, because we are assaulted daily with twin lies about our wealth. The first is just that what we have is ours and ours alone, and we can do with it whatever we please. But in actuality, what we have has been given to us by God to meet our needs, to be sure, but also, once our needs have been met, to help meet the needs of others and our neighbors. And the twin second lie, then, is about what we really need for this life. Every advertisement that we are bombarded with, we drive down the road, we see it on our smartphones, on our TV, on our radio, every advertisement is trying to convince us that we need their product. Whatever it is, it'll make our life more convenient. It will make it more enjoyable. It will make it more beautiful. We need it, or else we'll be missing out, and our lives will be proved meaningless. For me, the rabbit hole I go down on this is with techie things. Like I find myself looking at my phone and thinking, this could be better. This could be more efficient. This could be da-da-da. And so then I figure it out. And now I know, okay, now if I just get this thing, then I won't be distracted by this. And I'll get my sermons done on time. And I'll be able to spend more time. And my life will be so much better if I just got a new phone and da-da-da. And so on and so forth. Until then, I wake up and spend half an hour looking at nothing. And the Lord reminds me that I have what I need, or Amy reminds me that we don't have money for that, so maybe just enjoy what you have. Thank you very much. But that is what Paul and Jesus are here to remind us of, is that what we need has been given to us. Because our life, what sustains us, what makes us who we are, is truly a gift from God, and for us Christians it is hidden, such that nothing can take it from us. No height, no depth, no powers of heaven, no powers of hell, no earthly thing can snatch us away from Christ. So no physical prosperity or physical poverty can harm us in our life. And from that place of safety and security, knowing that we are safe in God, and we can begin to reframe what our needs actually are, so that God can provide not only to meet our needs, but to help meet the needs of our neighbors. And so God is working in our lives not just then to bring about some of what we need, but hopefully pruning our hearts, praying that He is pruning our hearts, that what we need and what we think we need is brought more in line with what He has provided. And pruning our hearts also, that in our pride we are unwilling to ask, He might humble us to know that there are those who have the means to help and are ready if we but ask. And so we pray then that God continue this work, and that we might lie in safety and rest in the safety that God has indeed hidden us with Christ, who is above and beyond all that might harm Him, and is so above all that might harm us, so that walking in this truth, we might have what we need and help those who don't.